Welcome back to SPD 911. I am your host, Dr. Jake Taylor Jacobs, President and COO of SIPS Healthcare. And this show is all about tackling the toughest challenges in sterile processing. Whether you're on the front lines or making high level decisions, we're here to equip you with real solutions to rescue and elevate your department. Each episode, I'm joined by our Director of Clinical Compliance, Sharon Green Golden, a leader in compliance and regulatory standards, who is not with us today, and our Director of Clinical Operations, Derrick Jones, a specialist in operational efficiency and team development. But today, guess who we have back? We have the illustrious Karen Cherry Brown, our founder and pioneer in this industry. I tricked her to come back, y'all. I tricked her to come back. And together we break down the critical issues affecting central sterile processing departments and provide actionable strategies to help you stay ahead. Remember, SPD 911 isn't just a show. It's your emergency response team for sterile processing. We tackle compliance concerns, streamline operations, and help you grow as a leader in the field. If you want to participate live and ask your questions, join the Executive Edge community at spd911.com. It's free and the only way to engage with us directly. Other than that, enjoy the show and meet us here live every Wednesday to catch the greatest central sterile processing live show on planet Earth. What's going on, team? How y'all doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. I'm sitting over here with thunder and hail, but otherwise I'm doing great.
I'm doing great too. I'm doing wonderful.
I like a little bit of thunder, a little bit of rain. You know, it cools off the earth. It was getting a little hot. It was getting hot, and I was getting uncomfortable.
Right. Look, I'm only concerned about the bald patches in my yard, so I put some new fertilizer down and seeds, so I need that to grow. So, rain or rain, I love the rain.
Good. And so you know how we start every day, every show, every week. I want to know what's one thing that you're most proud of today, and I'll start with you, DJ. This week, what was the one thing you're most proud of after last week?
Man, me personally, I'm proud of my ability to get through some tough tasks and activities that I had going on in my life. Man, it just shows the strength and perseverance to battle through. You know, even when you feel that there's no hope at times. You know what I mean? So to be able to make it through a tough obstacle, stand strong, and continue to have your mind, body, and good spirit and good energy about yourself. To me, that's a blessing within its own right that I'm able to do that and get through it. So I'm grateful.
Good. Go ahead, KCB. What are you most grateful for over this past week?
You know, I'm gonna say just every time I open my eyes, as I tell people, I'm just grateful for a new opportunity. And as an elected official, it was campaign week, early voting this week. And so people were being ugly on the internet. And so I'm proud of having a voice to say, why do we have to tear down one another to try to lift ourselves up? You know, and that's in any situation, because we don't think about all the yakking we do and pointing the finger at somebody else. All that does is push the light back on us. So for being a voice, and it was all on social media on different platforms where, you know, somebody running against somebody was just ugly. And I just posed the question where people, you know, it's like people like negativity for whatever reason. You know, somebody puts on there, my daughter made an A, you know, my daughter passed whatever. It's like, who cares? But if you like, my daughter is going to the penitentiary, everybody's going to jump in all on that. I knew that was a little bad, such and such a girl all her life. But, you know, I stopped and I said, why do we have to keep feeding the negativity? Why don't we focus on, we have two people out here that are running for something. One of them is going to be, you know, your elected official. And the other one, let's applaud them because they got out there and they introduced themselves to you and put themselves on front line to want to represent you. It got real quiet. And so when it got real quiet out there, I was like, yes, sometimes you got to be that voice. So I guess I'm proud for not afraid to be that voice.
That's my KCB. You better get them, girl. So for y'all heard what she said. She said elected official. You know, you heard what she said, and she said,
yeah, that's big time.
You know, KCB is like the American dream from small beginnings in small town, Tulsa, T-Town, they call it, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Coming to build a multi-million-dollar company from just her brow of saying, hey, I want to provide opportunities to all across this country, to then becoming an elected official. Man, that's a beautiful thing. And it made me think about something. I was looking at a video, and I'll get to my one thing, but I was looking at a video, KCB and DJ, and the video said there's only 3 phases of your life: your learning phase, your earning phase, and your giving phase. And the issue that people have is that they try to mix the phases when they don't belong. The first portion of your life, first 30 years of learning. Of course, you're going to earn some, but you're learning. You're trying to figure out what your niche is or your cut is in this world or in this life. The second phase is you're earning. You're building, you're growing. You've learned all that you need. Now you're putting it into practice, and you're going for another, for another third of your life. And then the last third of your life, that's your giving. You're giving. And when you're an elected official, it's 100% giving. And even if you were to get a stipend, it doesn't match to the amount of like pressure that you're receiving just from people of your community that don't realize that you're volunteering your time essentially to try to make sure that there's a place that is fair for their families to be able to live. So kudos to you, KCB, for again paving the way for little brown big head people like me and DJ to see that there is a way, and you've done it. So I do want to say thank you for always showing us an example of pioneering in that.
Thank
Yes. American dream.
American dream.
you.
So y'all should see her house. Okay, her house is woof. She got the island. You drive up to it. Ooh, you better get it, girl. Okay. My one thing I'm proud of, you know what? I'm gonna say this. I'm proud of where Sips is. I'm that's what I'm proud of this week. Sips is in a great space, in a great place. And Sips is doing something that only the great long-standing companies can do. And it's reintroducing yourself in a way that the new market can accept it. You know, usually you have those staple companies that are so nostalgic that it only caters to a generation. And then it kind of phase out. But I'm loving to see that. And KCB actually, DJ, she sent me and Donnie a video. She always does like encouraging things. She like that's her version of giving like little mom sticky notes. Like it'd be great. And she was showing Bishop TD Jakes and him passing the baton to his son-in-law and to his daughter. And it's hard for a lot of people who start companies to be able to willfully pass the baton and move out the way. And KCB has been planning over the last, 6 or 7 years that process, and she officially passed the baton to Donnie and myself last year. And I actually wanted to start with you, KCB. It has nothing to do with sterile processing right now, but while we have you, we got to pull some stuff about you, especially 2 weeks in a row. I want to hear from you. What was that transition like? Let's start with this. What were your fears when, knowing that at some point the company would have to go and be in the hands of someone else leading something that was, essentially the vision that God gave you? What were some of those fears, and how did you overcome those fears? Just for anybody else that's maybe in sterile processing, leading an organization, they know they're going to have to give their shift or their department to someone else in order for them to elevate up. What were some of those fears that you dealt with, and how'd you overcome them?
For me, I think early on, as a business owner, is when fears were, as far as me going out, being the person that did the account, because I needed people to know who Sips was, but I was Sips. And so you having to stop and think that I'm gonna have to replicate myself if want the business to grow. And so my fear was, well, they aren't going to be able to do it like me. Well, when I realized you don't want a whole bunch of me's, you want people that everybody brings something to the table that we can all, learn from. So I think that was my biggest fear, is thinking nobody was going to be able to do something like me. Well, I mean, I like to think I'm great, but I'm not the greatest. And just think, if I kept that fear and wanted everybody to be like me, well, we wouldn't be, we wouldn't have the Derricks, we wouldn't have the Dr. Jakes, we wouldn't have the Donnies. Well, we have all this talent that makes us better than we were when we started. And so when it got to the point of saying, okay, it's time, it's time to retire, when I realized that I only knew what I knew. And so my fear was, if everybody in the company only knew what I knew, as far as even with the newest, the latest and the greatest in technology. I did a video with a 20-year-old the other day, well, on Easter actually, and it was about older people thinking that their way is the only way, the right way, and how are we able to communicate with each other to grow and learn from each other. So when I realized that the generation that's working today are far removed from looking like me if we want to grow. So I would have to say, Dr. Jake, it's just life and being in tune to what's going on in the industry that made it not difficult for me to say it's time to pass the baton so the company can continue to thrive.
And I think that has a lot to do with what we're actually seeing in organizations all across the country, in departments where you have maybe a leader that's not willing to start passing that baton or start doing those things. Before I get to you, DJ, I got one more question for KCB. In that transition, when you knew that it was about to be your time, there's a fella at Boston Children's. His name is Angus. He's the director at Boston Children's, system director, I believe. And we have our leadership program over there. And Angus said, Dr. Jake, when I took this job, I told them that my sole purpose over this next 8 to 10 years was to build my replacements. My legacy is there. So when you start to kind of see that, and I kind of want you to put back on your SPD manager's hat for a second. Why do you think sometimes it's hard for a leadership to have that same mentality? Like, when do you know it's time to move on to a bigger project or a bigger hospital to allow other people to kind of get into leadership roles? Like how do you know, and at what point do certain leaders actually stifle growth within hospital organizations?
Oh, I think we get comfortable. Fear of thinking that I've been here forever, so I know this hospital, I know these docs, but we limit ourselves from growth when we get to that point that we are afraid to leave, thinking that we won't do as well. But if we continue to enhance our skill set, and we say, and you're looking at people in your department, because my first department, actually hospital, I've been there, I was there for 15 years. And probably in year 13, I started talking to my supervisors. I said, I need to know who wants to be the manager, because I need to start mentoring you, because I'm moving on. Because at that point, I felt like I had been there forever. I knew what I knew and thought I was pretty good at what I did. And so I wanted to share my talent with somebody else. I was ready to move on and upward. And so I think if a true leader is not afraid to share, to enhance, to mentor the people in their department, to get them, whoever you ask that question, look at people and say, hey, and then move on, move out the way. I mean, even this Monday, I had lunch with a young man in my community that sits on different boards. And I told him, I said, you're sharp. And he said, I asked him, would he ever be interested in running for city council? He's in my district. He said that I wouldn't run against you. And I said, but what you don't understand is I'm ready to move on. I'm ready to pass that torch. So if you're interested in running for city council for this district, I want to mentor you. His eyes got all big. And I think any leadership position a true leader. That's what we need to do.
That's good. That's good. And now this doesn't have anything to do with today's show, but I felt it in my shana that some people needed to probably hear this. Now from your side, Derrick, you have. I like to tell Karen Cherry Brown often that her story is a unicorn story. Like what she's been able to do with SIPs, from the antithesis of SIPs, from being in ideation phase to how many leaders and lives that she's affected all across the country. Um, it's such a unique story that sometimes she thinks that everybody can kind of do it too, but they can't. Everybody don't have the sauce, KCB, and it's okay. But her humble heart, she will never be able to see it. However, Derrick has more of a realistic storyline that I wanted to kind of pull out so they can see it. Now you have an example with Derrick, who started off in sterile processing, went up to Surge Tech, and then did the sterile processing thing. Now is in consulting, but has used all of the skill sets that he's learned to actually support he and his wife's their family business. So while still being an active sterile processing advocate and consultant and a specialist, he's taking all of those skill sets that he's learned and transferred them over to helping them grow, a 7-figure family business. So I want to talk about a couple of things from two different points, because I think it's important for people to understand that what you learn here can in fact be transferable if you are trying to truly learn how to master certain skills. So Derrick, at what point did you start to, you probably already had entrepreneurial, a drive in you, but at what point did you start to see that the things that you were learning in a hospital, being an SPD manager, supervisor, and a leader, could be transferable to you actually running, a company, helping your wife run y'all's family business on top of being a specialist here in SPD?
Well, first, I got to start with a joke, because Miss Cherry never seems to mention that boot I ran on her in the spades table when we first met. So we'll leave that to the past. But I think as I grew, as I began to grow in sterile processing, once I saw that healthcare was a viable career that offered opportunities and growth potential, I began to look at opportunities where I can get in, learn, become an expert, and excel and move forward and learn as much as I could.
Right.
I wasn't given an opportunity to go directly to college. I started off being an adult at a young age with 2 daughters, so responsibilities for making sure that they're taken care of always came before my personal growth and opportunities to find a career that I can excel in. So as I stumbled upon surgical tech, and I looked for a job opportunity at the first hospital here in Missouri that I wanted to, work with. Once I got in, I always told myself and others that once I get into this hospital, I'm going to the top. I'm gonna be a leader. I'm gonna be someone that is known, that is well respected, and I will change lives. So I told myself that. So then I began to grow and attach myself with people that I desire to be like, or I knew that will get me to the levels and the heights I would want to be. And it got so crazy that when I started making real money, good money, I went out and bought myself an BMW just so I can fit in with the surgeons and park next to the doctors and surgeons. That was a terrible decision, but it worked, right? I would either wear my caps and I would tuck my scrubs in, and I would look nice and neat. I would go home and iron my scrubs. So I began to do all those things and associate with people until finally the opportunity started coming, right? I started getting invites I started jumping on boards with infection prevention and offering the sterile processing perspective and the experiences that we go through. And, you know, as I began to get more confident in speaking and talking about the subject that I was an expert in and that I began to grow and become knowledgeable of, I started to get received and more and more doors began to open. So all of these skills and what I learned about leadership and especially management, I always thought that once I take on the role as a supervisor and a manager, that I was going to get this period to where I was going to get trained. They were going to teach me about all the systems. You know, I was going to get a thorough walkthrough and meet the teams. But what I found out and what I'm teaching most of the people that I mentor and that I'm inviting into the leadership world is once you sign that contract and you accept the job, you're thrown into the fire and you got to sink or swim. So I began to learn. I had to go home and learn. I had to sign up for classes, associate myself with people like Miss Cherry as I began to go to conferences and began to network and connect. And so I began to build my circle of influences and people that and mentors that I desire to be like, and I will lean on them for information and knowledge and just guidance and coaching through, you know, particular situations. And all of these things that I've learned through my journey, what I learned is that they're transferable. Policies, procedures, operational tasks and duties, how to manage people. It doesn't matter the industry, whether it's working at a warehouse, working in sterile processing, or working in the mental health and substance use industry. All of those same things that all of the things that I've learned in my profession and my journey in surgical tech and sterile processing, all of them applies to the industry and that my wife and I have created and dove into and learned about and developed our respite program. All of those same skills apply. It's just the language is different and the client base looks a little different. So to tell someone, you just really have to find a passion for what you love to do and attach yourself with people that are like you and that are higher and better than you so that you would always have someone to look up to and you can have someone that'll support you in your growth and your journey.
Dr. J, can I say two things on what Derrick said?
Always.
So number one, Derrick, what a good mentor would do is let you win. So
Yeah.
see, I saw potential in you, so I let you win that game. I'm just telling you that.
Yes, she did.
I'm just teasing. And something else you said as far as dressing, you know, tucking your stuff in, trying to look like. My grandmother used to say to me, Karen, if you want to be the part, you have to look the part.
Yes.
I didn't understand what she meant, you know, then, because I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? But I remember I used to make my clothes because I never wanted to be like everybody else. Never wanted to be like everybody else. So, I mean, in 7th grade, I was making my clothes. And so I didn't have a dress on or pants on like everybody else. And then somebody said, your clothes are so nice. They're always different than everybody else. And I was like, okay, I don't know how to take that. But, you know, I thought about my grandmother. I'm like, because I'm standing out, I'm standing apart, whether that's good or bad. I'm not like everybody else. And then I realized I really am not like everybody else, and that's okay. And I say that because a young girl said to me the other day, she said, I'm going to meet my family because her and her dad just got united. Her being 25 years old, so now she's meeting that part of the family. She said, suppose they think I'm weird. And I said, if somebody says you're weird, put a big smile on and say, well, thank you. I worked really hard at being different, you know, and I said, it kind of throws them off and it breaks the ice. And, you know, and so I think people need to hear that it's okay to be your unique self. And it's okay, what Derrick was saying, you know, line yourself up with people that are where you are or where you want to be. Because if you're asking, if everybody's on the same playing field as you are, and you're saying, you know, I want to become a millionaire, and everybody that you're talking to is living from paycheck to paycheck,
Right.
well, odds are you're going to continue to live from paycheck to paycheck, and it's nothing wrong with that circle you're in.
Right.
But if you really want to do the things you're saying you need to do, you're going to have to grow your circle. And sometimes you're going to have to even move out of your circle. And you might even encourage somebody in that circle.
Yep.
But that's just my 2 cents.
And I actually want to add to that,
Mm.
especially when we're talking about your circle. And there's so many people that's like, hey, I started with this person. I will never become that person. But what we have to understand is that you typically rise to the level of the people that's in the environment that you're in. Because someone that's operating at a higher clip, the things that you think's a big deal, they help you snap out of it and say, if you don't get over that. And so it forces you to have to. It's not that, if people that are more successful or better humans than who you started with, it just means that if I want to go somewhere and the people that I'm around have never been there, I'm not going to keep communing with people and getting advice from those that have never been there before, because that advice could actually cost me my dream. I need to be around the people that have had a piece of that dream, all of the dream, a portion of the dream, so that if I'm talking to them and I'm letting them know where I want to go, they can give me a real solid roadmap, and also can help me navigate my emotions when things aren't happening the way I thought that they should, that I've never been there before. And many of us have unrealistic expectations of certain seats and positions that we dream to be in. And we think that it's supposed to go a specific way. But if I'm around people that have sat in that seat before, that's held that position, they'll tell me, calm your emotions down. This comes with the job. This is a part of the this everybody goes through that. Everybody gets blamed. Like, it's no big deal. And then what was a big deal to you, now you start to realize, oh, all y'all deal with this? Okay, cool. It's not that big of a deal. KCB, I saw your mic on mute. It's like you wanted to come and chime in.
Oh no, I agree. I think back when I was a technician, I knew what I knew. And so on weekends, since it was just a few of us, and my lead tech would be the person in charge. And so I would say, can I do this? Can I do that? Because those things that she did on the weekend checkoff, I didn't know.
Right.
And so for her, it was like, sure. And I remember some of my coworkers saying, you're an idiot. You're doing her work. But in my mind, I was like, no, I'm learning this skill set because one day I want to be a lead. And actually, I end up being that lead supervisor and then that lead's manager. So, I say you shortchange yourself when you listen to people tell you, I wouldn't do, because those people that used to say to me, I wouldn't do that. And I'll just smile at them thinking, I would never want to be the manager. I would never want to be the supervisor. And I was thinking, you probably never will. But yeah. I do. If somebody got to sit in that seat and be the boss, because my grandmother used to say, Karen, you're going to either be the boss or somebody's going to boss you. And since you boss it, you better figure out how to be the boss.
Yeah.
Well, I figured it out. But that comes with humility.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't have a great team like I have if you didn't learn to eat humble pie along the way. Gained a little weight from eating humble pie, but I'm not.
Yeah, you're gonna pick up weight for that humble pie. But I did. Now this forces me to ask y'all this question. And yes, Ignacio, our executive producer, I am pivoting. This is called a live pivot. I do want to ask this. Do y'all think leaders are born or leaders can be made?
Derrick, you want me to hit that first? Or you want to hit it?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm curious to see your response.
I think both. I think some people are. I think about Martin Luther King. I wish I'd known him so I could ask that question. But I look at little kids sometimes on social media, and they're just, 6 years old. So that kid is leading the pack because you see them, the other one's following them. So I think people are born leaders, but I think even with that, you have to enhance that leadership skill. people that aren't born leaders, do I feel like they can be good leaders? Most definitely, if they apply the tools to get them to where they need to be.
Okay. Okay. What about you, DJ?
I think leaders are born. When you go through history, even some of your bad leaders, it just seems that they have it in them. It's something in them, whether it's in something they're truly passionate about, they may know, they may have studied or trained in. Um, I give you an example, and this may be the wrong platform, but when you look at a pimp, you know,
What?
I mean, just it's just certain things with people's intentions. Let's just say with people with the wrong intentions.
There we go. We
To
got
be able to convince and persuade someone to go in a direction that they don't desire, even a pastor, even group think in a hospital setting. Sometimes that is a natural ability to be convincing in the word choice or learning words, and your own personal beliefs about something. You're being charismatic.
Yeah.
Some of those things come natural, and whereas you can teach someone the best way to engage with a group of individuals or an audience, and they still may not be able to galvanize and get people to follow. I think that is something within you to be able to lead, to be convincing, but I do think you need to be taught the right way at times, or the proper way to lead people, which is where training, development, coaching, and possibly a mentor can help and assist in that area.
I agree with that.
I'm more on the vein of like KCB both, which means DJ, you're right, 2 times, 3 times. I'm both. The reason why I'm both is because coming from the sports world, it forces you to have to look at things as both and. I don't think there's an either or. And the reason why, and this is for all of those leaders out there, that one, you either have the natural thing to you, or two, you feel like you want to be a leader, but you've never had the environment and any of these things to cultivate it. So there are some things that are both and. For like an athlete, you have some athletes that are just naturally 7 feet, 6'10", can jump out the gym super fast. Then you had athletes like me that made it to the Hall of Fame that wasn't gifted all of those abilities, but I bust my butt to learn all the tricks and the trade of the sport, and I put in my time. And eventually, some of that ability did end up coming to me a little bit later, but it was not at the extent of some of the most gifted athletes that I've ever played against. And what happened was their capacity and even their ceiling was higher because of natural ability. And my capacity and my ceiling was lower because I don't have certain natural capabilities. However, I maximized all of what I had. So it looked as though I've had a better career. I was a better athlete. I was a better player. The only difference was I was able to cultivate, train, and build the things inside of me that I was good at that would ultimately give me the edge. And so I take that over to leadership. And it takes me back to Exodus 18 when Jethro was teaching Moses. I think it's the best example of really understanding leadership capabilities. And when Jethro was teaching Moses, he says, listen, some will lead 100, some will lead 50, some will lead 10, some will lead 1,000. He's breaking them down based on capability. Some people who have that natural ability, but that also has the work ethic, they're going to have a higher ceiling. They can lead an entire hospital. They can lead multiple companies at one time. Then you have someone else who may not have that natural ability or that natural light that they just came into this world with, that nobody can say that they trained. that actually trained, that maximized. They went to all of the emotional intelligence courses, and they didn't just try to master it to say that they passed it, but they really worked on trying to read and understand people. Although there is a promise there to be able to do it, but that doesn't beat someone who was born with discernment that's past your imagination. They can read people faster than you can imagine. And they've never been to a class, but they've been in the field studying people. So there's kind of this thing where, even in our show, Bred to Lead, our other platform that SIPS has, we talk about building leadership capabilities and skill sets. However, I think that a lot of organizations have to spend a lot of time also trying to assess real capacity and capability. It's almost like in the NBA or the sports draft. It's like, you're good and you did a great job in college, but this kid doesn't even have training and was right behind you. So this person's potential meter and ceiling is a lot higher than your ability. And you may be able to do the job. You may check all the boxes, but you don't have the it factor. And for those of you all that are singers, I do the same thing. You have your technical singers, then you have your God gift on earth, right? And the God's gift on earth that trains to, let's say a Beyonce, listen, it's different. But then you have other folks that are, technical. They learned how to sing. They learned how to hit notes. The feeling is totally different. They could still win awards. They could still do great things, but their ceiling is not as high as someone who is just gifted it. And so what I would like to tell everyone, if you weren't naturally gifted with the thing, and the thing I mean is, it's kind of like that spunk, it's that spinaz, it's that your entire life you just had what we call in Texas that drip. It's just something about you that brings people towards you, and they want a little taste of the drip that you got. They want to kind of drink it a little bit. That's a little natural thing that you have. A lot of people in that space can curate it. And the other thing that we have to also consider, like say for an example, into my experience, that we also have to take into account. I was bred to be a leader. So in areas where we may say someone is gifted the ability to lead, we also have to ask ourselves, what was that mother telling that child in the womb? When that baby came out that womb, how fast did they make them become independent? When that baby became a toddler, how fast did they start making them make their own food? When that baby, so when you talk about environment, you talk about cultivating, you talk about giftedness. Some people have that thing, but I do believe that everyone has the ability to be bred to be a leader. How soon you're exposed to that type of leadership training and development and openness in the environment, I think that does change where your capabilities are and your capacity. And then there are some people that just has the tolerance to deal with so many different things at one time that no one has ever trained them on, that they have different levels of capability. So yes, I believe anyone can be bred and trained to be a leader, but capacity has a lot to do with how long have you been in an environment that forced you to have to be a leader, because some people's upbringing forced them to have to lead themselves and their siblings and whatever their life was. And then other people have other gifts that some people just don't have that are more fit for leadership in that capacity. And I just wanted to get KCB, I want to get your thought on that.
So, I know we shifted here, but I believe that things happen for a reason. There's some leader out there that needs to hear this today. But where you were saying people that were born with the drip and know it. And so my story is that if anybody that's read my story, I watched my documentary on Tubi, that my story is different. I didn't know that. I was one that stood in the background forever because of my insecurities. I was taught that, I never could be, never would be, and those things. So I accepted that until one day I was like, who gets to, you can't tell me what I can be and can't do and how pretty, what determines pretty, how smart, or this, that, and the other. And so I stepped out and said, Karen, if you want people, well, to be honest, my sister said, people treat you the way you treat yourself. And it's the truth. If you walk around everybody's shadow with your head down, well, you're going to get thumped in the head or somebody's going to slap you or whatever. But if you, somebody else said, fake it till you make it. But if you start to, believe in yourself and you hold your head up and you walking proud, even though you might not be the smartest in the room, because you look like you are, people gonna look over at you because there's something about that person, and people do like to associate themselves with what they feel is important or smart or whatever the case may be. But as life happened, and like I said, with store processing, really embracing it, understanding it, and being good at what I did. And I was like, okay, I'm going to take this and I'm going to run with it. And I'm so grateful that I took it and I ran with it. And I'm going to keep running until I can't run anymore. And when I say can't run anymore, that's because God called me home.
That means if she's in a wheelchair, she's going to be willing.
I'm going to be willing. I have paying somebody behind me if my battery ain't working to push me.
Yeah, I think all of those things are true. And the reason why I really want to hit on that, and I wanted to hear y'all's perspective, is because there's someone out there right now that's like, on one side, I'm gifted. I've always been good at doing this. So, people like me, whatever, but you fail to realize that even though you are gifted, you still have to be trained. And then there's somebody there that is the quiet one in the room, that is the one that's counted out, that doesn't have all of the special things that everyone else has, that they also need to know that, hey, I can train and I can develop, and I can become the type of leader. I may have to work harder at it than someone else, but that is something that I can actually master if I just put my mind to it. And I think it's very important that people understand that. And I also think it's important for people to understand the difference between management and leadership. Because leading, when you are a leader, your job is to make sure everyone else looks great. When you're managing, you're just trying to monitor and keep everything the same how it is. Like, you're not trying to innovate. You're not trying to change anything. And we have to make sure that as you're identifying who you are and where you are in your life, you may be a great manager, but a terrible leader. And you can be a great leader and a terrible manager. It's very few people that can lead like amazing. They can lead like you can't believe and can manage the same way that they lead. Very few people. And those few people are the ones that create true change in any industry, because they're just that special. And they're only special because that means that they're putting in the time to actually develop the skill sets that are required to be able to cultivate both end. And so I want to talk about that. Have y'all ever experienced or had a moment in your career where you're like, hey, I'm not really that good of a manager as I thought, or I'm not that really good of a leader as I thought, but I'm a great manager? Is there any time that you all felt that? And what did you do to kind of start to fix it, or are you still working on it? I would like to hear from you.
Well, so what I would say is I go through that every day, and when you're in learning to be a good leader and developing into a quality leader and or manager, you begin to look for different tools that you recognize in yourself that you need to be able to grow and to be better in both areas. Sometimes being a solid leader and a manager is understanding what's needed to complete the task. It's not necessarily what you can do for it, but understanding how to apply the right people, places, and things to help you succeed. In my personal business, I've learned that I understand how to find the necessary people and things I need to to accomplish the goal for our organization, whether it's outsourcing, whether it's hiring someone, whether it's getting a consulting firm. Understanding that in sterile processing is the same. Understanding what departments you have available for you in those areas, um, how to lean on your leadership for guidance to achieve the necessary tasks that you need to accomplish. So as you learn, as you develop as a leader, it's not always necessarily what you know and what you can do to accomplish things and to, lead the department in the right direction, but it's about how to go about getting the tools and the things you need for the positive outcomes or the outcomes that you choose to achieve.
KCB.
No, Derek, that was really good. Yeah, I mean, there were many times when I first got into leadership roles where I doubted myself, and I just thought, oh God, I don't want anybody to see that I don't know this. But then I said, shame on me if I'm hiding the things that I don't know and not getting the resources that I need where I do know. And even with looking for people that you hire, I realized when one of my employees said to me one time, aren't you afraid that hiring that person, that they would take your job? And I said, well, if it's my job, no one can ever take my job. But I said, but the smart leader knows to hire people that have skills that they don't have, because that, again, that enhances all of us. And so I would take, like I said, classes, and I still take classes. There's too many resources out there for someone in a leadership position
Talk
not
about
to be a great leader or
Yeah.
not to be a great manager. And like you said, if you know, I'm just not a good manager, but I'm a great leader, then hire a great manager, or vice versa, but you have, in order to have a successful business, a successful department, you have to have those skill set you have to have great skill set in both. And if you can't be both, make sure you hire the other one to complement where you fail.
And I think I think y'all hit it right on the money. And it kind of takes me to one of the best attributes that is needed for any leader is to know what you're not good at and how far you are. Now, we talk about developing certain skills, but you shouldn't slow down progress because you don't have certain skills built yet. And the best thing is to hire somebody that can help fill that gap for you and learn from them on the job and go. So like for me, I feel like I'm a good leader. I'm a good leader, great leader. I think that I'm good at macro management. Micromanagement, oh no. Listen, it goes down the hill. I can build the whole system and the framework, but if you want me to be there every day and manage that, it'll be hard for me. So hiring managers or hiring leaders that are great at micromanaging. So when we talk about coupling, it's not just about, even when you're hiring in your organization, for those that hire, it's not just hiring someone who sounds good. It also is hiring someone that has the capability to be able to plug the hole that you're not good at. Okay. So if I'm hiring someone who's great at micromanagement, but they're not good at macro management, I can cross train them on me being good at macro management, and they can cross train me on micromanagement, but we can still hold that lever for each other, where either one of us have to be super dependent on learning a skill that they haven't had time to master or sit in. And so this is why, even when it comes to leadership and management, truly knowing your weaknesses and being open about them is important, so that people know how to support you, and not positioning yourself like, hey, I got all this figured out, because when you do drop the ball, because you will, they'll be looking and say, hey, you did it. And I think that that's a large part of what happens, and why people struggle in organizations too, not realizing that we have to hire not just based on what we desire, but we have to hire based on what our deficiencies are, and then we build from there. KCB, you've done a very great job of hiring a great support team, executive team, that was able to couple your deficiencies. For 20 years, you've been doing a great
Mhm.
job with that, you and Donnie. So can you explain or kind of talk to us about, one, why it's important to be open and honest about your deficiencies, and two, how you were able to, get over, everyone has that time, get over that feeling of, man, if they know I'm not good at this, will they not look at me as a good leader and saying, I'm going to hire whoever I need to help me? So how are you
Mhm.
able to couple that, see it, and why is it important to be open and honest about your the things that you're not good at?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's like you said, you have to be able to first accept and admit what your shortcomings are.
Yeah.
And as I said to somebody the other day, oh my God, you revealed the truth. Everybody's gonna know I'm not Superwoman now. You have to take off that mask and admit you're not Superwoman or Superman. And you don't want to be Superwoman, Superman, because that means you're not having a life. And so you want to start looking at whether it's owning a business, whether it's running a department, you want to start looking at those areas of opportunities. And what are those areas in order for us to be our greatest? And then you start filling in those, whether it's, whatever personnel or whatever the resource, whatever it is that you need. And for as far as, like I said, accepts, I know I'm a visionary. I know, as Donnie calls me Z. She says,
That's
I have a
perfect.
great idea, which is A, and then I want to run right to Z and say, is it done yet? Well, I need those great resources in between A and Z to make it happen. And I know I wasn't B, C, D, or what is it, Y before Z? And so accepting that and then looking for people that do have those characteristics, those skills that complement where you're trying to go. Notice I said compliment because there are great people out there, but are they going to be great with
Oh,
your
that's
department? Are they going to be great with your company vision and mission? So, you have to be careful with that too. Just because the person looks good on paper, I think Dr. Jake said earlier, you want to really take your time. You want to date them
yeah.
and make sure that they are a good fit. Once you find out that's a good fit, go ahead and make that marriage and feel good about it.
You
But you
just
still, it's still making sure for me as a business owner that the people that are in these positions are getting what they need from the company in order to be successful and for us to keep thriving. Because you
that's
don't just let people go. You still want to make sure that you're doing, if they need you, they know, you're there to make sure they get what they need. And that's for managers in a department with your supervisors. That's for directors, because typically a director might be in another area and your store processing department in, somewhere else. You still have to be present. You still have to make those rounds. You still have to have those, those weekly or bi-weekly meetings to talk about how things are going. Sometimes people just want to vent so they can move past whatever is going on at that point.
right.
And if I can speak to that, and you just said something that just brought something to my attention about having to still be present. Myself, I've experienced a little bit on the opposite, where people are intentional about destroying your character or taking your position because you do bring them in as a resource to help build in areas that where you may be lacking. You will
Mhm.
find yourself training your replacement unintentionally when your objective is for the macro perspective of the entire department, whether it's sterile processing or the organization, whether it's a recovery organization. You bring them in, you recruit them. You hear about, all of a sudden, you hear about their credentials, their experience, what they've done, and they're promoting themselves on behalf of you, bringing them to a situation to benefit the whole when their intentions are to maybe remove you or to better themselves and while destroy you. So I will say, as a leader, be cautious and interview and make sure the person you hire is truly indeed there to help the whole picture and the whole organization and not just there for themselves.
And how
So
do we
Derek, I'm gonna go back to can't nobody take something from you that's meant for you. And if you're good at what you do and you've
Yeah.
been stuck there and the organization doesn't value you've been there all those years and they looking at somebody that just came in there, it might be time you take your skills somewhere else. I mean, I'm being
That's true.
real. Because
That's
if
true.
something
Yeah.
is lacking, they never would have brought that other person in there.
Mm-hmm. But
And if you
what I will say is I don't mean to
I like
argue with
this.
you, but
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
because
That's okay, Dr. J.
right, I will say because not that you're absolutely right. They can't take what's yours, but they can cause dissension and they can take you personally and your organization or department through a rough patch of turmoil where you will make the wrong decision at the wrong time because you're not willing to go through the turmoil and the struggle that they cause for their own personal gain, if that makes sense.
No, I get that, and being
Okay.
and being on both sides of the fence, and that's when I realized that this is what consultants do. I should be a consultant because the hospital brought a group in consultants to work with me because I was a new director at their hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were asking me these questions and I'm giving them the answers and giving them this is what the problem is. And I'm saying, this is what I'm working on to resolve it. When we went in that at the end of the week for them to do their report out, and I'm sitting there waiting on, this great report out, they said word for word what I said. And the hospital gave
Wow.
them all this money to
Yeah.
repeat everything I had told. And I'm sitting there looking like this. That's what a consultant is. But they did me a favor because I said,
Yeah.
I know what I'm making, and I know they're making 3 times as much. So guess what? I'm going to be a consultant. So that's why I said it's what we do with that, because if we're, and I understand that because, like, at first I was like, they're bringing these people in here. But like I said, those people opened my eyes to how much I really knew.
Yeah. And so what I would say, depending on the environment, if it's an environment where you are the controller, you're the owner, you would navigate it differently than you would if, you're working inside of an organization. And so what y'all are hearing, those that are viewing or listening, you're actually getting 2 lessons at the same time. You're getting a lesson of an owner and you're getting a lesson of a leader employed inside of an organization at the same time. So you should rewind and re-listen to what they're saying over and over again to get the dual lesson that's inside. And what I would say that matches any environment. This is why when you see in corporations, why they always like to say there's gatekeeping, where you can't get certain information or certain access to information until you're there for a certain period of time. You're in a certain position. There's certain coveted responsibilities that you have. And all too often, in an effort to dump responsibilities off on someone, a lot of us, we've all done it. A lot of us, when we get that help, we're like, whew, thank you, help me, just take that. Here's this information too. Matter of fact, here's this book. Everything you need about everything that we do is here. And then here, no. Just because you're hiring help doesn't mean that you vet it to know if they're really there to help or to harm. So you have to give certain information, certain things, and certain opinions that you may have on certain dispositions, certain opportunities, certain people to yourself until time shows what that person's character truly is. And a lot of us that are new to leadership, that are new to growing organizations, that have never been burnt before, we open up into positions with an open heart. Like you try to give someone every opportunity that you never had. You try to make sure that you line it up, everything for them. I want to make sure you're good. I'm going to be the leader that I never had for you. But what we fail to realize is that that lack of whatever you had is what made you who you are. You can't cut the forging process. And even in growing organizations, the manual made forging process is what lets you know what that person's true heart is for your organization, for you, and vice versa. An example I will give: you may say, all right, I'm hiring you for this supervisor, leadership role, or whatever. Okay, we've been running this department without a supervisor already. So me just coming off the gas just because we have a supervisor here, it's not the wisest way to run an organization. Everything needs a smooth pass through, like a baton anyway. So, hey, I'm going to give you these duties and I'm going to observe what you do in that position. And as they master or show you their capabilities of doing those said positions, you slowly start giving them more and more duties and allowing time. But we still don't give them the secrets. You know, it doesn't matter how many times we saw SpongeBob in a Krabby Patty. You never got the secret sauce. And you realize that the secret sauce in SpongeBob, this has nothing to do with the show, was his own people, the crabs. He was killing his own people with a Krabby Patty sauce. You notice he was the only crab around, you know. But when we talk about it, we have to understand that in leadership, discernment is important. Okay, discernment is important in wanting to have help, wanting to have support, wanting to have somebody that's your ride or die. You have to understand this. My grandfather told me something that absolutely changed my life. And the only time I really didn't listen to it, it cost me $4 million cash. So listen closely. I'm giving you a lesson that cost me $4 million to make understand it. I'm giving it to you for free. KCB, you know the whole story. My grandfather said, believe nothing of what you hear. Believe half of what you see, but only trust what you've witnessed for yourself. That's it. That's it. It doesn't matter what you tell me you've done, where you've been, because let me tell you something. There is no great leader on planet Earth filling out an application. I can promise you that. Someone that's really good at what they do, they ain't got to fill out no application. They getting called, you know, they popping, they showing up, and they saying, hey, I saw you had a job available. I decided to show up. You're going to pull a KCB. Well, while I'm in the area, I'm just going to pull up to this office. I see you looking for a manager. Here am I. Okay, where do I have the interview? The people that are great at what they do, that type of top talent has to be poached. You got to tell them, hey, come over here. There's some great things that we can do. The way we got over here, KCB poached us. There was no application. There was no pitching contest. There was no proposal that I was going to do that she had to poach and had to show like there is a better way here if we were to work together. And so if someone filled out an application and they applied for a job like everyone else and you knew nothing about them, remember what my grandfather say, believe nothing of what they say. Because anybody can have lies under their tongue. Anyone can make you feel good. Their stories can resonate with you, but you have no idea what insight and who they got that insight from to even woo you in the first place. 1. 2, I'm going to believe half of what I see because I can't even trust my own eyes. Because depending on how I feel that day would determine how I'm looking at you, okay? Whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. If I'm mad that day and I don't trust anybody that day, there's nothing that you could do that can make me unsee that I think you're doing something shady. But if I'm in an amazing day, my children are great, my relationship is great, my relationship with God is great, I didn't pray today, I went and worked out, I'm feeling good about myself, everything that I see looks good. And even the mistakes I see, the red flags, we then make excuses of why we're seeing that red flag based on the lens that we're looking. But the only thing that you can pinpoint for a fact is time through observation. I'm getting to see what you actually can do through observation. And the issue that so many of us have running our organizations is that we skip that. In an effort to relieve the pain that we have, we try to just relieve it and give someone 100% of that trust without having that time to actually see if they really have your back, if they really have the organization's back, if they really are doing and are exactly who they say they are. And that itself is the number one thing. So I would tell anybody that's listening right now, believe nothing of what you hear, believe half of what you see, a fraction of what you see, because some of y'all's half is too big. Believe a fraction of what y'all see, and only speak on and trust what you have observed for yourself. If you have not observed it, you do not trust it, because everyone puts a little bit of flour and fluff on their stories. Everybody got a little gift, a little extra edge. I do it. To make the story better, I got to let you know I came from the dungeon. Okay. But the truth is, it's only through observation and through other accounts that confirm what you're seeing for yourself that you can trust that. And so I'm not telling you not to trust. I'm telling you to be careful with who you're giving your trust to, because you can have a heart. You can become as a leader and have a hardened heart. And it's hard to lead with a hard heart. But if you understand and you take your time in relinquishing that level of trust, you got to realize that the knives that are stabbed in your back, the backstabbing that you opened that door. You created that opportunity for you to even be backstabbed because you wanted to rush the process, because you wanted to hurry up and get out the hot seat of having to handle everything for yourself. KCB, what's the last thoughts on that?
Hey, you hit the nail on the head. Facts. I have nothing else to say on that one. You dropped it.
DJ?
Same here. Facts. Miss KCB, you know I still love you. I ain't mean to go at you.
Oh no, I love that. I love that, because people see things from different lenses. So I appreciate you sharing. You sharing your view. I was gonna
it's
call
just
you.
been a rough year. I know.
But I appreciate that, because
Let's just say it's been a rough year for me. So
I just say watch those snakes. And when you
right.
see them moving too much, and I'm saying that to everybody out there because that is true. People are hired, they might be hired as the educator, and they're like, oh, I can be the manager. So they're trying to report off stuff on not even in their lane. So, that's one of the things when you see those, and I'm saying to those people that are just sitting there being mad about it, start documenting and then communicate those things, but make sure your I's are dotted and T's are crossed, and just say, we need to have a meeting because Derrick's over here in my lane. I appreciate it, but my lane's okay. I got it.
Yeah, and calling it out is important. Like not letting anything slide. What happens is when you give somebody too much grace that they didn't deserve and earn, the only God can give that much grace now. I can't get that much grace in the front. Like you got to earn some grace points with me. Other than that, you got to call things out as you see it. If they slithering like a snake, you got to call that. Hey, listen, you're slithering right now. You're doing a lot right now, and it's causing me to start thinking some other stuff. When they see that they can't get past doing a lot of times it'll stop them in their tracks. It's almost like Dora the Explorer. On Dora the Explorer, when my daughter used to watch the show, there was this swiper. It was like this fox. And then the fox, if you didn't call it out, before you knew it, it ended up taking what was yours. Or I'm preaching to somebody as we closing this call out. And the problem is that what Dora did is that what they realized was if they called Swiper out before Swiper came, Swiper stopped right dead in their tracks. And a lot of you are bringing people into your life. Forget SPD.
Uh-oh.
I think we lost Dr. Jake. Dr. Jake, are you on mute? I think you're on mute. But he's right. Look at the people that you surround yourself with. And if you see something that doesn't look right, then believe it. Speak on it and move on. You don't have to sit there and holler and waddle in something that you don't need to be in. Just keep it moving.
That's right. Can y'all hear me?
What your goals are. Keep focusing on what your goals are.
So back to what I was saying. There's no such thing as separating personal from business or life, because you're bringing your personal self into that organization or into that business. So how you do anything, my grandfather told me, is how you do everything. And the biggest thing that we have to take into account is that, listen, you got to call Swiper out. If you let Swiper stay around you swiping, before you realize, he gonna steal your glory too. And you got to call the enemy out. The only way you can stop somebody in their tracks from taking advantage of you is if you call them out and say, hey, I see what you're doing. I do not like it, and don't do it again. As a matter of fact, here's a write-up. Because what happens is, when every time that happens and you allow that to happen, you justify it. And when you justify it and keep justifying it, now when it's time for you to actually do something about it, you didn't justify it so much that it's hard for you to even admit to anybody that you let that stuff slide. And so now you're hard on yourself. Now you're letting that person just kind of do whatever, and you put yourself in a worse position. So a lot of times as a leader, one, we're slow to trust in the first place. Trust has to be earned. And two, when I see something that's out of line, you have to call it out. But you ain't got to be mean when you call it out, but you have to call it out, because if you do not, it's going to be hard for you to stop that train when they all in your pockets, they all in your life. You didn't introduce them to your family. You didn't call them your brother, your sister, your cousin. And then the moment you call them your best friend, your brother, your sister, your cousin, you giving them grace that your family earned with you. You got 30, 40, 50, 60 years of building relationships with people that you just gave them birthright access to, and they did nothing to actually earn it or prove to you that they truly had your back. And so I'm talking to y'all right now as leaders. I'm telling you this right now. You got to cut it out. And it starts with you being honest with yourself and saying, you know what? The things that I do not like about my life right now, I do not like them because I've allowed it to happen. And everything that's around me that is happening is because I chose and I accepted for it to happen. The only way that you're going to be able to get that change is if today you make a decision. It ain't tomorrow, it's today. Decide means to kill off. Your split decision. I need to kill off a decision, which means I'm self-sabotaging by allowing inadequate, underdevelopment, underperforming natures that's inside of me be a reflection of that. Everyone else can come be that around me. I'd rather you be uncomfortable around me and respect me than to be my friend and to make you think that doing some crazy stuff is acceptable. And I'm done with the show. KCB, you close us out.
Mic drop.
Hey, I can't come back on that. Y'all heard it here. Put it into action. Put your plan into action.
Listen, welcome to SPD911 Missionary Baptist Church. We're closing out. We're closing out. We'll see y'all next week, and we'll continue talking about how we can make SPD better. But today, we just felt like you needed something poured into you, because a lot of y'all are coming back from HSPA. You got all that training you needed for the week, but we're going to give you something that you need right now. You need to understand that you are the author of your life, and God has given you a blank canvas. Whatever your life looks like right now is the drawings that either you drew yourself or you allow somebody else to draw on your canvas. And we're going to blank that thing blank, and we're going to take control of our life, because we ain't doing this no more. Because in order to be a great leader, you have to have full control over your life, and we're not going to allow nobody to stump on our parade. We love you, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.